Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another weather forecast. You're by agent of the forecast, and I do apologize for the very late upload. I just got home, and I do really apologize for that. But this is going to be another winter forecast here on the very significant snowstorm that's going to bring in currently snow practically later into early tomorrow all across the day across the Midwest with a very strong clipper as well. We do have windstorm warnings from North Dakota towards Illinois, Missouri. And then, of course, this storm will eventually make its way by Sunday across the deep southeast and bring very dangerous ice totals as well as some pretty significant snowfall. And that's going to act like a very significant Miller A-type nor'easter, bringing in a wide variety of areas that can see whiteout conditions along the I-95 corridor. But without further ado, let's get in the forecast. And again, if you are going to get impacted by these areas and you guys want to know the timing, when you get the worst, what you'll get, whether it's rain, freezing rain, sleet, or snow, and all that, then be sure to watch the whole video. And if you want to get more updates leading up to the event, be sure to subscribe to the channel. But let's go ahead and get in the forecast. So here's the latest look at the National Weather Service. So we do have two parts of this storm. We're going to have the clipper part of the storm, which is going to be acting on really tomorrow, and then we have kind of the other area to watch out for will be the nor'eastermost. It's going to begin across the Dixie Alley, but again, this low pressure to kind of go all the way down to Texas and then go back up all across the country here because of that very strong ridge up there, which I'll show you guys later on. But let's now go ahead and look at the overall advisory. So we do have winter weather advisories along the North Dakota area, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, and in Nebraska across much of the north central and upper Midwest. And then we have windstorm warnings kind of embedded within that layer of advisory. So if you see those pink counties right here, that's where you have these windstorm warnings. That's we're going to be seeing kind of that heavier snow banding continuing, as well. Going to be seeing kind of really a higher snow ratio along those areas. And as just overall, that's where going to be the main area. So southwest Minnesota, kind of cutting through the heart of Iowa and towards far northern Missouri and a county there in western Illinois, and of course the eastern Dakotas with a windstorm watch across northern Missouri. And then we have another watch right here for north central Arkansas as the storm will move in here by Saturday, and then by Sunday we do have windstorm watches. It actually includes me. I'm actually under a winter storm watch, but we do have already windstorm watches across this area, as we do have pretty high confidence in it, either very significant ice totals and as well some pretty significant snowfall totals. So this includes upstate South Carolina, western North Carolina, as well the kind of the bordering counties there in Tennessee right there. You can kind of see the bordering counties there in Tennessee along the Great Smoky Mountains. So that's we're going to be really watching out for that very significant snowfall. And then of course we do have North Georgia right here. Obviously, I'm right here in Gainesville. So we're going to be seeing some pretty significant impacts here and all that good stuff. So definitely a pretty significant storm, and we should start to see some more watches, advisories, warnings issued along the northeast, mid-Atlantic, and as well southeast once we get closer tomorrow. So let's go ahead and look at the overall potential winter storm impacts for tomorrow across the Midwest. So we do have a pretty large area of minor impacts from northern North Dakota towards southern Kansas, Arkansas, and as well Missouri, Illinois. So we have a large area. So if you're in that really that yellow color, you're gonna be seeing some minor impacts when it comes towards the winter. You're gonna be seeing just typical results. You're not gonna be seeing really any results that will allow for any inconvenience. So we're not looking at anything too crazy, although we are going to be seeing some pretty significant snowfall. We're not watching out for anything really out of the ordinary nor threatening to life. So we're just going to be seeing minor impacts. Then you have the that orange color, that second shade, you're going to be seeing moderate impacts. So that's going to be, you can kind of tell kind of towards those southern portions of the warnings, and that as well we could see some windstorm warnings across Missouri and Illinois later tomorrow. But we're really going to be seeing some often threatening to life and property, some dangerous, unavoidable, typically resulting in disruption to daily life. So this, we're going to be seeing some more dangerous conditions. And I like how right basically in downtown Des Moines, we have the only major impact. So right down there, right in downtown Des Moines, they are right in that very small major impacts. So that's where we're going to be seeing blowing snow. So we actually look at the snow amount. The worst snow amounts are actually going to be across northern Iowa, Minnesota, and portions of South Dakota. But as we now look here, eventually towards the southeast here, going to be seeing almost extreme impacts here. Extensive and widespread severe property damage, life-saving actions will be needed. It results in extreme disruption to daily life. So across these higher elevations, across the upstate South Carolina, across southwest North Carolina, northeast Georgia, This is where we're going to be seeing the overall snow amount, very extreme snow amounts with really in a moderate all the way from portions here the northeast metro Atlanta all the way up towards the Carolinas, while in the southern half we're going to be seeing more of an ice threat. But notice how Atlanta's not really in there as well. We have another moderate for Nashville. But if we look at the overall impacts, here's the overall impacts though. So we're going to be seeing really spotty areas of moderates. Of course, I'm going to be towards that moderate. We're going to have some other spots here, but the most extreme area to watch out for, I'd say tomorrow for at least, or not, sorry, not tomorrow, but Sunday, this is going to be the main area to watch out for. I'd say that at least northeast Georgia, upstate South Carolina, and as well portions of there that kind of bordering area of South Carolina. But look at the overall ice accumulation. This is not going to be fun for some of these areas. We're going to be seeing, I think the worst ice accumulation are going to be across this general area right here. Kind of the Winston-Salem area, Charlotte. You guys are going to get absolutely hammered about ice up with those warm noses and up above freezing temperatures. Here is the overall snow load. So it looks like the heavier snow will also be kind of towards these highest elevations. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the models. So let's now go ahead and get a look at the latest 18Z GFS. And actually what we've been seeing so far today and even yesterday, models are starting to trend to a very far south, or at least trending south with this low pressure because of this high pressure and very strong gradient with this high pressure along Ontario. Since the high pressure is so far south and that very weak low pressure is right next to it, the low pressure is going to get pushed very south. So that's why this event is not going to act like a normal clipper, but it's going to kind of go straight to the southeast here. So here's going to be looking at practically tomorrow. So you're going to be seeing that very heavy snow along those areas of the eastern Dakotas tomorrow morning as well across southwestern Minnesota. And there's that low pressure all the way down there in Texas and Oklahoma, while that snows a few hundred miles to the north. And look at that's all because of that high pressure being way up here at 1,042 millibars right next to the storm. So it kind of pushes that low pressure super far south. And eventually we're going to be seeing another high pressure coming in. This is now going to push it now east-southeast instead of going directly southeast. So now it's going to be heading now by tomorrow across portions of the Midwest, including Illinois, Indiana, Northern Missouri. I think Northern Missouri will get more widespread windstorm warnings, including Western Illinois. You can see that very heavy snow for areas in north central Missouri. And there's that low pressure here by 9Z across Texas on Saturday. And then as we go towards eventually now by the afternoon on Saturday, this storm is not going to make its way. This low pressure at 1,003 millibars. It's going to start to head into a baroclinic zone here once it goes towards Georgia and the Carolinas. But there's that very heavy snow developing on the northwestern side where that cold air is actually going to arrive. But since this high pressure is now pushing to the east, we're going to be seeing a CAD or a CAD, which is going to basically mean cold air from the northeast is going to push into the southeast Appalachians. So then by the overnight hours, we're going to start seeing some snow developing. Going to be seeing a very small layer right where we have these watches right here. And then we're going to be seeing that main storm right here. So that's why we're going to be seeing such concerning totals across Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Because with that CAD, we're going to be seeing well below freezing temperatures pretty early on as well. With the warm noses, we're going to be seeing as well some really dangerous ice totals. But here's look at now by 12Z on the 16th, which is Sunday, there's a 998 millibar low pressure. Freezing rain is going to be very visible across Central Carolina, specifically North Carolina. And that's where we're going to be seeing specifically those inversions. And there's that main snow across Tennessee, the Carolina there. But it really won't become a big threat till eventually later on by 15Z and then 18Z. There you see a very significant ice across North Carolina and then that very heavy snow across Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, the Carolinas, and the Appalachians, eventually in towards Virginia where that low pressure now steepening at a pretty decent rate there at 997 millibars. Then it continues to steepen at 989 millibars. It's going to be staying off the coast because of that high pressure sitting off the Atlantic, kind of causing that storm to kind of stay going north instead of off the coast like a typical nor'easter. But either way, this very sharp gradient, as both this really strong mesocyclogenesis, we're going to be seeing potentially some very strong bandings here as well, possibly some very high snow ratios, and we could very well see some very significant banding of snowfall across upper northeast and eventually towards upper New England. And eventually this low pressure will get off the coast at 985 millibars, so that would actually increase the chance for snowfall, at least across coastal New England, but coastal mid-Atlantic and coastal northeast isn't looking the sharpest. But let's now look at the latest European here. And actually, what I'll show you guys real quick is I want to show you guys an example of the, actually, no, I'll show that in the NAM. I'm not going to show that in the GFS, but let's look at the European high resolution. So here's the same thing. There you have actually 3 high pressures now. So I kind of forgot to talk about tomorrow. So let's look at very heavy snow across, like in the Dakotas, Minnesota. There's that really strong high pressure kind of following this system, but kind of slowly moving kind of southeast. Then another high pressure builds up, pushing it this way. So it's all kind of aim for the portion of the Ohio Valley, the Ozarks, and as well the Midwest. But there's that heavy snow across Iowa, Minnesota, the Illinois, and Missouri area with that low pressure way down there in Texas. So notice how these models are starting to trend, or at least not starting, but they've been trending for the past few runs at a very soft low pressure, which is going to really yield the impacts for specifically the southeast. Not going to impact too much the northeast if it goes further south, but it will really impact the southeast here. So about 1,007 millibars at 18Z, 1,004 millibars at 0Z, and 1,002 millibars at 60. But notice how at 60 we're already getting that snow and ice across Georgia and the Carolinas, and that's because of that CAD. And there you have that 1,033 millibar in the northeast, and that's going to bring in that cold air down to the south. So that's why the southeast Appalachian are in the perfect spot for this storm compared to the rest of the southeast. And there you see overall anywhere just north of this low pressure is going to be involved in that snow or wintry mix. The European is not having as much ice to begin with, but it quickly transitions into a very dangerous ice mode across the central and southern Carolinas here, all the way as close as Wilmington, at least close to Wilmington. But there's that really heavy snow across the Appalachians, so you're going to be seeing actually not anything significant when it comes to the warm air advection across the Carolinas. But there's that low pressure at 1,001 millibars. It's going to start steepening. We're going to be seeing some stronger vertical motion aloft. So we're going to start seeing some really strong pressure falls, which is obviously going to allow for pretty much very significant dynamic cooling with this event. As we now go to 1,000 millibars at 18Z, there's that very significant ice, and that's going to be seeing kind of that highest warm air advection regime there. And then, of course, going to start bringing in more snow across Georgia, Tennessee, across the Virginias, Kentucky by 0Z. And then by 0Z, sorry, not 0Z, yeah, 0Z, 6Z now, this low pressure is 990 millibars. It's a little bit closer east, I'd say, compared to the GFS, but there's that really heavy snow. Actually, possibly could see a brief few hours of snow across New York City, but then as this low pressure kind of moves directly over New York City, it's going to quickly convert into rain. But we could see by really early Monday, and be seeing some really good snow chances across the upper New England as well upper Northeast, including areas like Syracuse, Worcester, Pittsfield, Massachusetts. You guys have a good shot. Boston, it's a little bit on the not so sure side. But let's look at the latest NAM, and the NAM has taken a huge dip to the south compared to the past runs yesterday and even last night. So here's a 15Z. There's a high pressure at 1,041 millibars. Low pressure down there in New Mexico and Texas. And then by 21Z tomorrow and then 0Z tomorrow, there you see that very heavy snow. Probably could bring some snow as far east as Chicago, maybe very briefly, maybe Madison. But again, if this high pressure does trend like the GFS, that would be pretty unlikely. But there's that really good snow there across Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, South Dakota, and as well Minnesota. Could see as well some pretty good snow across the Twin Cities. Could see some really good snow across Aberdeen, that general area. And then Michelle. Oops, I didn't need to do that. And then by eventually, we go to now 15Z on Saturday. There's that low pressure. It's not as far south, but it does dip pretty quickly south by the time we get towards 0Z. So here's by 0Z on the 20 or on the 16th. There's that very heavy snow just to the northwest of that low pressure, where we have that colder area kind of seeking. And then watch this high pressure. It's going to start pushing its way quickly to the east-southeast. And there it is, east-southeast. So since this high pressure is moving in, there's that CAD going to start developing, going deep. And that's exactly why we have a big regime of very cold, very significant wintry weather in northeast Georgia, while we have nothing for northwest Georgia or even Alabama. That's exactly why this is such a weird setup. So it's going to kind of avoid Alabama and then go straight to northeast Georgia. And it's going to be very odd shaping. That's because of that CAD. So this is going to be the normal cold front right here. There's that going to be the normal cold front. So that's where that cold is going to be. And then you have a second cold front kind of pushing actually from the northeast, not the northwest, and that's why the NAM is really showing some really good ice and really strong snow developing. But the thing is, although we have the surface temperatures from this CAD, we don't really have the mid levels. We're going to be seeing some very strong, really warmer advection regimes because of this strong photogenesis, but that should settle up by the mid afternoon. So we're missing kind of our warmest temperatures, actually, believe it or not, in the morning compared to the afternoon, because that's when that colder advection will start to set in. But there's the mid levels. It's 32 degrees and 32 degrees in the surface, but look at that really strong inversion, getting up to around nearly 7 degrees Celsius, below 850 millibars. So it's going to really impact. I mean, it's going to be very saturated, but look at the difference between areas kind of deeper in that colder advection, and sorry, not the colder advection, but deeper in that CAD. You're going to be seeing inversions, but notice how the temperature is a lot colder in the surface, so that inversion, it will be significant, at least for that profile, but won't be as a big factor because it's still going to be a little bit colder. But again, that's going to be the one problem with the warm noses, as well with the strong inversion. That could be the leading factor to this strong ice, and this very significant ice, why I'm seeing that really good snow across the western Mississippi Valley, as well. Can be seen, look at that really big ice threat. I mean, this is going to be a very dangerous ice threat. I mean, we're talking about power outages. We're also talking about very strong winds, which would also yield power outages. Specifically, we have extra weight from ice, and we're not talking about some very small ice holes. We're talking about anywhere from maybe over an inch of freezing rain with an additional over inch and a half to 2 inches of sleet. This is a very significant ice threat for the Carolinas, and as well portions of East Georgia, with as well additional snow threats after the ice. So we are watching out for a very significant study. If we look near Charlotte, for example, you're going to have the temperatures at 28 degrees, but look at that inversion, very strong warmer advection, because that photogenesis is trying to neutralize the environment. And that's going to continue. This low pressure is going to be a lot further north, so it's not going to be as significant for a portion of the southeast snowfall-wise, but it's going to be very significant ice-wise, again, across western North Carolina. It's 20 degrees, but look at the inversion. That's an absolutely crazy inversion, getting it to about nearly 10 degrees Celsius at around 800 millibars when it's 20 degrees in the surface. But once we get to the backside of the system, we will start to see some more snow across now Tennessee. You're going to be seeing a lot less there. You see, it's not going to be anything too crazy. Same thing in Georgia. Not going to be seeing anything too crazy when it comes to conversions. And then it's going to make its way towards Virginia. And there's that low pressure. Going to bring some really heavy snow across the Northeast, maybe just north of New York City. Very good snow as well for the Great Lakes and as well the Appalachian Valley. Also, something very interesting is that now the icon, which has kind of been very stubborn yesterday, was showing really absolutely nothing for the Southeast. But now it's really uptrending, I say the least, when it comes to the southerly trend, which is going to be a lot better for the Southeast when it comes to snowfall. But here's a look at tomorrow. There's that really strong high pressure system bringing some really good snow, or not bringing snow, but it's going to cause the snow to move the way it is, and that's going to cause a low pressure to move the way it is. But still, low pressure down there in New Mexico and Texas. It's like, I'd say, like almost maybe like 700 miles to the southwest of that, southwest of the main storm itself. But there's that snow. It makes its way in towards Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota by practically tomorrow night. And then we go towards tomorrow, or Saturday early morning. There's that low pressure moving in 1,003 millibars, 1,004 millibars. So it's not looking as good, it's not looking as promising, but as we go towards, as this CAD starts to move in, there you see that really significant snowfall now. Let's actually go towards the actual zoom in. There is that CAD moving in, really cold temperatures developing across those higher elevations in the southeast Appalachians. And there's that low pressure. It's not as far north, but it's definitely a southerly trend compared to yesterday. And there you see that snow really developing across this area. So I'm going to be seeing some really good snow across northeast Georgia into Virginia, as well maybe some good snow across portions of central Tennessee. I'd say it definitely has uptrended. If you look at the trend, if we look at maybe the 0Z from last night, let's see. Oops, I didn't want to move that. Look at the 0Z. Actually, no, that's maybe the wrong one. I think it was maybe 18Z. Again, you can kind of tell it's been uptrending since, or it's been at least trending for more snow since 0Z last night. But here's an example. I guess the 18Z. I guess it was, I mean, earlier, yesterday, they were really stubborn. I think at least it was the icon. Maybe it could have been another model. Yeah, you see, for example, actually, maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was a different model that was pretty stubborn. Because I could recall that the icon was very stubborn on this storm. maybe it was earlier today instead. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, it looks like, I guess that was, maybe it was a different model, but the icon's definitely still showing that really good snowfall. And at this point, it's actually, if you look at the actual snowfall accumulations here, which we can't look at weather models, so we're gonna be looking at on here. Again, consider that the icon doesn't really consider frozen precipitation like a mix. So here's the overall snowfall accumulations here. So I'm seeing, I mean, a decent amount of snowfall comparatively. Here's the here's, I believe this is the latest run. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the latest run. So here's the latest run, I believe so. So gonna be looking at some pretty good snow across the higher elevations here. Obviously, that's where we're gonna be seeing areas west that low pressure, so that's where we're gonna be seeing that really significant snowfall. And then these other areas right here are gonna be seeing more of an ice threat across central South Carolina, kind of central North Carolina. But they'll be looking at some really good snow as well, maybe a few inches up there northeast Georgia, getting closer to a foot when you go to the higher elevation near Asheville and Boone, and then you get really, really heavy snow as this low pressure really goes through cyclogenesis as well as dynamic cooling. And many areas could see it almost in Pennsylvania, southern New York, maybe Virginia, who knows, we could see probably over a foot of snowfall. Let me now go ahead and compare the GFS with the European here for the central part, or at least the Clipper part of the snowstorm. So there's really pretty good similarities here. I mean, there's nothing too different. There's that main area to watch out for. It's kind of highlighted in the warnings, and that's why I do think these warnings will extend further into western Illinois and further into northeast Missouri. But they kind of agree that here's the European on the right, the GFS on the left, pretty similar. I mean, there's that really main area regime, but maybe over 8 to 10 inches across eastern North Dakota with some spots closest to the border getting over a foot. And then southwest Minnesota, northeast portion, South Dakota, and all the way to Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois, we could see a pretty big area of 8 plus, maybe even 10 plus inches of snowfall. And then kind of start to see some differences a little bit closer towards Illinois. So going to be seeing maybe a pocket of no snow across the Paducah area. That's going to be a little bit tougher to forecast, but as well, could even see a few inches there across Omaha, Kansas City, maybe 2 to 3 inches of snowfall, maybe 4 inches. Then it could get as far south, maybe accumulation wise, all the way down here into Missouri, as that's where we're going to be seeing those actually really good cold temperatures. But yeah, I mean, pretty good similarities. Really good stuff for Iowa, Minnesota, and the general area. And then as we go closer towards now the southeast portion, or the eastern portion of this event, you can see even some really good snowfall across the Ozarks. Could be seeing, I'd say a good maybe 3 plus, maybe even 4 plus inches across that area. And if the European were to, or the GFS were to verify, actually, it looks like we're looking at, almost the exact same thing here, I think so. Actually, I think we're actually looking at, I don't think we're actually comparing them. I think we're actually looking at actually, no. Yeah, we're actually comparing them. Okay. So let's now look at the overall now differences between the European and the GFS. Again, the European is on the right, and then the GFS is on the left. So here's, again, you're going to start seeing these differences kind of closer to this general area. There is a lot of uncertainty. You can see the European trending towards the 4 inches near Paducah, while GFS is around 2 inches. And there's also going to be some differences across areas as well, like Arkansas and western Mississippi, maybe, western Tennessee, maybe half a foot or maybe a few inches. It's going to be definitely something hard to forecast. But let's now look at the overall main park here, which I'd say is going to be anywhere across the Appalachians, all across the I-95 corridor. So we're going to be seeing a huge pocket of probably over a foot of snow based on the steepening of this low pressure, the cold air being there with 2 fronts. So we're going to be seeing probably over a foot across a lot of areas, including from North Georgia onward to Maine, as well. Going to be seeing some very significant snow across areas of Virginia, as well across the Appalachians in general, but not looking too good for the coastal areas, considering that low pressure is trending a little bit further westward. So I wouldn't get too confident, especially if you're looking at the European. They don't have too much going on here for the coast. Yeah, pretty good similarities here across northeast Georgia, with over a foot of snow across this general area. But again, looks like the GFS does favor areas like the coastal, or at least the coastal areas a little bit more as well. It looks like it does take this main snow. Actually, it looks like the European does take the snow further the west here. But I hope you guys enjoyed that portion of that. But let's look at the NAM. Maybe reduce my screen size a little bit. Here's a look at the latest NAM. So very significant snow, actually getting over nearly 15 inches across Iowa. So we're going to definitely watch out for some very significant snowfall across that area. It could definitely be seen. Maybe an expansion of those warnings. But look at the NAM, has almost nearly 15 inches near southern Missouri. That's also going to be very interesting. That's, like I said, there's going to be a lot of really differences between models in that general area, because it's just, will that cold air stay strong and follow the low pressure. Also, it's going to depend where that low pressure location is. So that forecast for Missouri, Arkansas, that general area is going to be a little bit tougher to forecast, to say the least. But could definitely see some significant snowfall, maybe over half a foot. And let's look at the east. Going to be seeing, again, this does stop to 84 hours out, so it's not the whole storm, but we can see at least a portion of Tennessee, because a big pocket getting over nearly a foot as well. Southwestern Kentucky as well, getting in that accumulation pretty far south across Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, even getting some pretty good snow accumulations for Atlanta, nearly 4 inches as well. In that big pocket there of over a foot across the North Carolina area. And then last but not least, let's look at the overall ice accumulation, the ice accumulation comparison. So here's a overall comparison. So going to be seeing our main pocket of ice is going to be developing across the Carolinas right here. The Central Carolinas. There you see the European kind of has 1.31, while the GFS is 1.2 as a max. So we could probably get over an inch of ice near the Charlotte area, Winston-Salem area, Northern Columbia, upstate South Carolina. It's going to be an absolute mess with this warm noses. We could very well see power outages and probably a repeat of the 2014 Snowmageddon across the Carolinas. This is not going to be a fun storm for any areas, but hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.